Hiya. One of the first questions you might ask me is, wow, you've got a lot of red in your room, don't you? Yeah. Yeah, I do. Onto the actual topic of today's video, we've got Mommy. The way that I'm going to be different from every other film critic on YouTube is I'm going to do reviews on bad films. I'm going to be doing films that I found in the bargain bucket. So this one was $2. I don't know why. It's a great film. It's kind of weird for me to bring up the premise of them being in bargain buckets, especially for this one, because I didn't find this in a bargain bucket. I actually found it at my grocery store, just hanging around in the vegetables, just like sitting there. Mommy was like right next to the cucumbers, just chilling. Now there's a joke in there that like isn't sexual, but for some reason I can't find it. And I don't know if that's just because a grown man saying the word mommy to me is just... Ugh. If it is for you as well, bounce out now, because this is gonna be a bumpy one. So the box art for Mummy, straight off the bat, there are some things going on. Why there's these leaves and like sticks on the left here? What is that? Is that the beach? It doesn't make sense. I can tell you now, I've watched it, it's not in there. Why does the little girl look like her face is photoshopped onto her head? Like, it just doesn't look correct for some reason. She's got like these dark black eyes. The actual like title text and everything is like slightly off to the right rather than where it should be, down the middle, which, I mean, it shouldn't make me mad, but it does. All in all, with like the lightning strike and the Academy Award nominated, I'm gonna tell you right now that Mummy is going to give me an experience that I've never felt before. And also very quickly, the rating system for Mummy is really strange. Because, like, I feel like I am one of those mothers who buys, like, a very violent video game for their child and is really mad because they were like, why didn't you tell me about this? Why didn't you tell me this game was not suitable for children? But, like, everything about this movie screams child's horror movie. Like, from the start, we have a child protagonist, which, I mean, I guess films for adults can have children protagonists, but it seems so Matilda. Even in terms of a horror film, it's so weird genre specifically, because it feels like it's supposed to be a mother monster horror sort of film. Like, I was waiting for the shoe to drop and Mummy to, like, start sucking my blood out real good, but she's not a monster. She's just a psychopath. Like an actual psychopath. It's presented in a way that makes her out to seem sort of paranormal, but she's not in any way. She just kills people because she has no emotions. So we're introduced to the film with just a banger of a tune, like the banger of 1995. It's just... Also, there are some, like, weird graphical errors that happen. I don't know if that's just on my copy of the film, or if that's how it was made. And it really begs the question, when was this made? And it's 1995. This came out the same year as Forrest Gump. Why does it look like this? Why is it in 4:3? I can tell you why it was made in 4:3. Because it was made for the greatest type of movie. Straight to screen. So we're introduced to Jessica, and she is our protagonist. Her name is Jessica Ann in full. She gets called Jessica Ann a lot. Jessica Ann! I don't know if she's a good actress or not, because everyone around her is doing such a weird performance that I don't know if hers is correct or not. It's kind of like when you hang out with your ugly friends to look hotter, which is a really weird thing to say about a child. It was horrifying. Horrifying, like, mummies, I really want to speak to the manager haircut. Old style though, not the new style, which is, I respect that. So we're introduced to our first two plot points. The first is that Mommy is mad that some Mexican, it's so bad, is getting accolades in this plaque that she believes her daughter is entitled to. And so she's going to go talk to the teacher about how clearly there is some race war going on here.
You know, when someone like Eduardo excels, it's important that he receive recognition.
Because he's a Mexican, you're punishing my daughter because she's white.
There's reverse racism as a plot point at the very beginning of this film, which is crazy to me, because I thought this was like a 1980s film, but it turns out it's a 1995 film. And so, like, I guess they're kind of just before the curve. The second plot point is that nobody brought a light to set. This is the darkest film I've ever seen, and maybe that was intentional, maybe that was to make it look like it wasn't supposed to be a kid's movie, but it doesn't come off that way. It just comes off like it was poorly planned, and there are so many scenes that get ruined by this. I'm breaking the news to you now. I'm going to be talking about the lights in this thing so much, because I can't see the plot for so much of this film, because apparently Mummy likes it in the dark. This happens.
Do you mind?
Yes,
Thank you. The award is for outstanding...
Yeah, I wonder if she's going to be important later. So Mummy has some banter with the primary school teacher, who is in the most nice primary school teacher outfit I have ever seen in my entire life. And they don't come to an agreement. So Mummy wrings that overused art smock out. Breaks her neck. And that's where the complications begin. This is when we start to get the solid narration, and just be prepared for this narration, because this is the most fatalistic 12-year-old I have ever heard in my entire life.
Why did they call for an ambulance, I wonder? Mrs. Withers was dead. What good would the doctor do?
She is so done with life. She's so done with people. She has like zero, it's not even, she doesn't have empathy. It's just she's ready for everyone around her to drop dead like flies. It's insane. So at this point the police show up, and then also an investigator shows up. And if this was any other movie, they wouldn't address it, but they address the fact that it wasn't called in as a murder case, and so there shouldn't be an investigator there.
Spellman?
March, what are you doing here? This isn't a murder investigation.
We'll get to that later. Where's our witness?
I believe they could have just scrapped that. They could have just glossed over it, and we would have all been like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. But they bring attention to it, which makes it so strange, because if they were going to bring attention to the fact that it's weird that an investigator is at this crime scene that isn't supposed to be a crime scene, they should have introduced the character after the autopsy, which they bring up later on. They bring up that the autopsy showed that it wasn't a simple fall off the ladder situation as Mommy says it is. Anyway, so that's the way it goes. Some questioning goes down, and oh wow, the janitor comes back in.
So, what's your story?
Who could have foretold that coming? Who could have seen this character being important later on in the film? Not me. Nothing comes from the investigation at first point, and we move swiftly back home, and Mummy has this bumper sticker, which is just perfection. It's perfection right there. At this point, we're introduced to the fact that Mommy is a bit of a black widow, and she's killed off a couple of her suitors before. So, like, if at this point you don't understand why the investigator's there, like, that it's from the other kills, right? I don't know why they treat it as a big, like, plot point later on that it's a twist that he's there for the other guys that she killed. Like, why else would an investigator be there? How he knew that that was going to be there was a very big situation. I guess, like, in the police report, that wouldn't have happened because it was in... I don't know, man. I don't know how this guy was so sharp that he knew, like, the second she killed someone, that it was like, nah, it's her. I've been on a track for, like, 6 weeks now. Mummy's mad because one of her last suitors didn't have as much money as he said he did, and that he gave off some of that money to his other ex-wives, or as she calls them,
By those other two witches he married. Oh, only Mommy didn't say witches.
bitches. The word you were looking there was bitches. Aunt Beth's our classic mother not mother, like the nice teacher from Matilda. This is why I feel like this movie is Matilda, because it has all the same character tropes. And she's come over hearing about the whole situation that happened today and made dinner.
It smells like spaghetti.
So this is the point where I want to praise some of the things the film does. There's a lot of 180 breaks that happen at this point, and some of them are very jarring and very not good. But there's this one that happens between the altercation between Mummy and Aunt Beth, and it's really like, it is jarring and it is very in your face, but I feel like the emotion that it's trying to convey actually really does hit home at that point. It's really overdone with the red light and everything. That's why this film feels like a kid's movie, because everything's really overdone. But I felt like that was one of the best breaks of 180 that I've seen used well. And that's not something you see in mainstream film a lot. Not many people are playing around with the rules of the camera, and, you know, good on Mummy for having a good go. Then there's some like talk between Jessica Ann and Beth, and it's not really interesting. It's just kind of exposition about Mummy's a psychopath. That's what it boils down to. But it does end with us being introduced to Mark, and this is where something really interesting happens. There's a little bit of narration done by Beth.
Mark and chocolate cake. That's a combo few girls could resist.
Which goes against everything that is a rule in cinema. Like, you're not really supposed to use narration anyway, because it's telling and not showing, but you don't get multiple characters that get to be the narrator. You've only got one. That's why they're called the narrator, not the narrators. I mean, I guess you can do it, but it's the only time it's done in the entire film. This is the only time she gets a narrator role. And, like, maybe it's ADR, but that also doesn't really make sense. And this is also the part when you find out, like, this isn't a kid's movie, so the line she just said is really creepy.
Mark and chocolate cake. That's a combo few girls could resist.
Like, what's she insinuating there? And so this is the second bit of praise that I have for this film. The relationship between Jessica Ann and Mark is very good. Like, there's not a lot of films out there that will show you a caring and understanding father figure, especially when it comes to a younger girl, and double especially when it comes to a stepfather. I really respect this film for not doing the usual, like, angry stepfather or just angry father in general. Like, and there's no father figure to bounce him off of, so it's not like, oh, good dad, bad dad. It's just, he's a good dad, she's got a decent father figure in her life. And that doesn't happen a lot, and 100 points for that. That's good stuff. Like,
Anyway, when he died, I felt empty. And then I started to feel afraid.
but the scene is really ruined with Jessica's line.
Mark was so sweet, but I'd known about people dying for a long time.
This kid is so existential. So existential. Like, she's 12 and she's already this done with life. She got on the life is meaningless train so many stops before I did. Later on they take turns trying to open this jar for dessert or something. Yeah, the lighting choice is a bit... how's it going? What were you expecting? The next day the janitor comes back. Who could have foretold this happening? Who could see this written in the scripture? Not I. And then she says some very aggressive things towards Jessica Ann, like aggressive enough that she should have been kicked out of school on that day. Like,
don't you go talking to me like that. I'm like a teacher. You can't talk to me.
You're fired. That's not how that works. Jessica Ann talks to the cop, who is fucking strapped. Like, I understand he's a police officer and they carry weapons, and like, to make him look like he's supposed to be a police officer or investigator or whatever, he has to have a gun, because otherwise he kind of just looks like a dude. But he is, in fiction, in a school. You think that he would have the courtesy to wear, like, a coat over it, or something, so that he's not frightening, like, every single child. The poorly lit cop gets nothing out of Jessica because snitches get stitches, obviously. We find out that the plaque that was made for the Mexican child was taken from the classroom, so it kind of makes it like, oh, mommy did it. Though I'm pretty sure Jessica at this point knows that 1,000-year gaze doesn't get there just by simply thinking her mother kills people. Anyway, after this, my favorite background character shows up. Check out this little girl. She is so lost in this moment. Like, it looks like she's looking around to try and find answers to a test, but it's clearly not a scene where a test is happening, and if she just paid attention to the front of the class, she'd probably be understanding what's going on better. Come on, Jenny, try a little harder to concentrate. Mummy finds out that the janitor was talking smack, so she goes to extinguish her because that's all we've seen her do so far in this movie. And the janitor's all like, oh, what are you gonna do to me? Meh. Yeah, that. Well, you don't get there without seeing a few overly dark shots. I thought the shots during the day were underexposed. God, you can't see anything at night. You can't see anything at night. Like, I paid for the entire movie. I'm hoping to see details, not just slivers of light. At this point, Jessica goes to go find the plaque in Mummy's bedroom or whatever, and the dop at this point was like, for the lighting in this scene, I really want that Eiffel 65 feel, you know, the dabba-dee-dabba-die? Yeah. And then we get back to Mummy killing the janitor, but wait. God, this sound effect is my ruin. Literally, I hate this goddamn squeaky noise. You hear it in so many things. If ever a gate is moving, they're gonna use this exact sound effect, and they never mix it in. They never do anything with it. It's so out of place all the time. People talk shit about the Wilhelm scream. That's at least funny because it's referenced. This is just used everywhere, and it's so bad. It's so bad. Please. This is going to be my white whale. God damn it. Please stop using it. Anyway, the janitor's dead, but there's a sequel to this movie, and she's in it again as a character that's got pretty much the same name as her. So, I don't know what goes on, if there's some retcon stuff, but obviously in Mummy 2, Too Hard, Too Mummy, some weird shit goes down. Because I've read the plot synopsis, and there is no retconning. This goes on from where we left off. So I don't know how she's come back alive. Voodoo? I guess I need to get Mummy 2 to actually understand why she's back. So, back down to the groceries. So Mummy and Mark are going out on a date night, which good for them, I guess. But Jessica has now got a new plan because she knows Mummy is a murderer now, even though how did she not know previously? But her idea is just to blank Mark because otherwise Mummy might kill him. I guess the idea is that she thinks that if she doesn't want Mark to be her father, Mummy will just leave him rather than kill him and leave him. But there's no indication that Mummy works that way. She's psychopathic. She'll do anything. Find out when we're in the bathroom of the fine establishment that Mummy and Mark have entered that. Whoa! Mark's a cop!
You are gonna blow my damn cover if you keep this up.
Like, this is where I found out the film's MA, because listen to this smutty dialogue.
Don't be surprised to see me here. This is where all the dicks hang out.
Ugh.
Or is little mommy a good lay?
Is Mummy a good lay? That one doesn't even make sense, because in relation to the two characters that are speaking, neither of them are the son of the mother. I mean, I know I've been calling her Mummy the entire time, and I get that she is the mother of the child, but that's not how you would refer to someone like that. If the line was, is she a killer lay? Now that is both a joke and would make sense for these characters to say. It's still disgusting, but like, why Mummy? Mark gets paged at home and doesn't want Mummy to find out, so he goes outside and it's a big situation. He's like, oh, don't contact me while I'm here. Then why'd you have the thing there? Jessica Ann overhears everything he says and goes and eavesdrops on him, and then this prompts him to go up to her room. And he enters her room and his shirt's undone, and it's just it does not look good. And they talk about how Mummy is a killer. Like, that's where it comes out. There's like a moment where they're like, oh, you know I'm a cop, your mum's a killer, you know that as well. I love you. In a fatherly way. They do keep that relationship pretty intact. Like, respect. Mark broke Mummy's first rule of no snitches, so bang, bang. These gunshots are absolutely hilarious. Then Mummy would you kindly's her daughter and tries to make up a lie where Mark was the bad guy in this situation. They make up a fake rape allegation, which is just... Who's supposed to be watching this? Who is the audience? It's honestly so haunting to hear these things said. So they call the police and there's another investigation and they interrogate Jessica again, which I don't know why, because she's an iron wall. You can't break this child. She knows the first rule. Snitches get stitches. Okay, so this is where the pacing of the film goes crazy, because the gunshot scene kind of felt like it was the climax of the movie, but there's still a solid 40 to 30 minutes left, and it just drags on. So I went and did a little bit of research, and apparently this was a short that then got turned into a feature. So that's why the pacing is off, because they didn't adapt it very well. Right after they're given their piece about, like, we're innocent, they just hit the road because Mummy knows that she's done for and she is a free agent. She brings Jessica with her, which I guess is just kind of like a thanks for all of the being the best child ever. Who won't tell on me about any of the crimes that I do, even when it affects you emotionally heavily. They stop at a motel so Mummy can satiate her needs, and then they get ready for bed. And then this happens.
She's a sick person. She has to be stopped.
I got so accustomed to all of the red and blue that this green just threw me off. What the hell is going on in this shot? Is it a ghost? At this point, Mummy tries to end her lineage, which, like, I understand. If you want to start again, you gotta delete your save file. Mummy's ready to rev up that engine and start a new family, and she examines this door and then finds its weakness and just BAM! Like, why did she look at the door for that long if she was just gonna break through it with her power? Then we get a dark on-foot chase scene, which is so boring because it's got all of the worst aspects that you could have in a chase scene. You can't see where they are, so that there's no tension. There's like, where's Mummy, where's Jessica? They're in the same shot sometimes, but you can never tell because you can't see the backgrounds. It's on foot, which already makes the chase scene pretty boring, and Mummy is walking the entire way. So there's nothing in it, and it goes on for so long. It goes on for so long, this goddamn chase scene. Just end it quicker. Ugh. And they end up at this car, and then a junkyard dog comes and just fucking mauls Mummy. Attack by a dog usually would end any normal human, but Mummy ain't going down like a witch. Get it? It's a callback. And so she gets out of the dog's grasp and I guess kills it, and then she goes to kill Jessica, but Jessica ain't taking it lightly anymore. She's dealt with enough of this stuff. She lands a solid right hook that just knocks the hair into a different zone. So this obviously doesn't stop Mummy. She starts choking out Jessica, but then the police arrive and she kind of stops choking her child to death, which the film kind of plays off as character growth, I guess. So it looks like the police officer is about to just smoke Mummy right in front of her child, which, I mean, we know doesn't happen because there's a Mummy too. So, yeah. False tension there. And then the aunt arrives and she looks so pleased that her sister is going to jail. So I can understand trying to console a child by being happy and using a calm tone, but she's smiling. She looks like she's been invited into the VIP area and just happy to be there. She's like, yeah, I came with the police. Turns out your mommy's a murderer. Ain't that swell? Ain't that quaint?
For a moment there, in the moonlight, she looked like me.
Mommy, Mommy, I've been good.
This song's back, baby! They show your dedication to Mommy. And I feel like this scene was supposed to be more emotive, but I can't see it, so I can't see the emotion. And then this ending shot happens, and it's so weird, and it kind of feels like you're gonna get a twist, but he just walks to camera, and walks back off into that house, which is very strange because is this supposed to be Jessica and Mommy's house? Did they bring them to that house to then put them in the police car to take her off? Or is it the police officer's house? Both of these answers seem wrong, right? You wouldn't want to do either of these options. Anyway, the credits are largely uneventful, except for we find out the people who played the rock music, not the Mummy music, is a band called Cruisin'. And I can tell you now, that's not how you spell cruising. So that was Mummy, and overall, I feel like the film had some things that it did that were cool, but also was kind of misguided. This is how most of these bargain bin movies are. They have ideas that are very set in stone with genre, but then they also do whatever the hell they want and don't follow rules. The things that work when they don't follow rules really work with me, and that's why I love these things, but the things that don't work stick out so badly. Overall, I would give Mummy a 3.5 out of 5, and that is very generous, but I'm only giving it that because if the lighting was better, it would be a strong 3.5. If you could see everything in the scene, it would be a strong 3.5, but I believe that everyone did a really good job, except for whoever was lighting. Like, whoever chose the lighting, and it might be just my DVD of it. Like, maybe I got a dud DVD, and there's a better version of this where you can see everything really clearly. And I believe if I could see that really clearly version, it would be a very, very definite 3.5. But maybe the one that I have right now is a 2 out of 5, because I just couldn't see what was going on. Anyway, so that was Mummy. I hope you really loved Mummy, because I sure did. I had a great time with Mummy. Oh, I just put my finger right in my coffee. Good night. Say your prayers.
Say your prayers, dear.